The United States of America is not a backpacker-friendly country at all, and certainly not a low-budget place to travel in. I was actually very lucky to be able to find my travel buddies on Couchsurfing. Well, it was actually they found me, and we're actually able to go on this epic 6 days road trip together. It's perfect to have 4 people to share the cost with, because with the car rental, the gas, the motel, the food and everything, it adds up if you're traveling alone. Now, road tripping in the US can be very expensive, especially if you're going solo. So we started in Los Angeles and we drove past Las Vegas. We actually just visited for a few hours, and that was way more than enough for me, at least. And we head straight to the wilderness the next day. Red Rock Canyon National Park is just half an hour away from Vegas. It's the perfect getaway from the very busy city. The visitor center inside is the most impressive one that I've ever seen in my life, featuring this massive panoramic window overlooking the vast landscape. Inside the park, it's a one-way scenic drive with many stops and points of hiking. It's quite stunning because there's actually a lot of hiking spots that I would love to do, but unfortunately we were very rushed at the time and pretty much just kind of raced through the park in less than 1 hour. So we went all the way to Zion National Park. Originally, actually, we were thinking of camping during this trip, but luckily we didn't, as the weather actually dropped way below 0 degrees Celsius, and the sunset was pretty early. It was around 5:30 in February. Unfortunately, there wasn't any cheap motel around the area, so we had to race through the park again before sunset and make our way towards the nearest town near Bryce Canyon to stay for the night. Zion National Park is very famous for the many wonderful hikes. This park can only be appreciated with hiking mostly, as we heard many are quite long, and the most famous one, called the Narrows, involved river crossing that we saw people with full waterproof gear walking in water. It's also famous for another one called Angel's Landing that's only possible during summer, and it's quite nerve-wracking from watching the video. We only managed to do the easiest hike in the park along the river towards the starting of the Narrow. We stayed at the nearest town of Bryce, called Panguitch, a perfect spot for us to drive only 30 minutes early in the morning to get in Bryce Canyon, beating the crowd. Actually, this is a low season for this part of Utah. Most people online actually advised me not to visit, as there are actually quite high chance of snowstorm and roadblocks. But fortunately we didn't listen to any of those advice, and we went anyway, because we didn't encounter any problems luckily, and we found ourselves in a winter wonderland. Bryce Canyon is truly magical. It's actually one of my favorite parks in this trip. The natural beauty is absolutely stunning. Now, perhaps the beauty lies in the uniqueness of the Hoodoo Formation, and they were sprinkled with a dash of snow. Despite the snow around the area, we managed to go hike all the way down the valley. I think it's around a 5 miles hike to see the Hoodoo up close. It only took us around perhaps 1 or 2 hours on this loop hike. There are many viewpoints inside Bryce Canyon, and the most breathtaking one, I reckon, is called Inspiration Point. It's actually not very far from the visitor center. The visitor center in Kanab is extremely helpful. They point us to one of this trail called Totstut Hoodoo Trail that only took us around maybe 15-20 minutes from the car park to where you see all the hoodoos. It's quite stunning, this landscape. We didn't expect it, really, like you're walking on another planet or something. We also found out about another trail called Wire Pass. Now this is highly recommended, especially if you're into Slot Canyon. This is very similar to Antelope Canyon and near Page. That's like everybody wants to get there to get the photo taken in these kind of canyon. But the one in Antelope Canyons, you need to pay for at least like $80 US to get in with a tour, and you can't really hike on your own. You need a tour guide to go with, and there were a whole lot of people. This specific point here you're looking at is extremely difficult and technically challenging. Looking from above the rocks, it's really high. It's a massive drop, and that's impossible to kind of jump down. And there's no grip that you can hold on to. The rocks are quite slippery, and luckily our travel buddy kind of helped us down one by one, but as you can see, we're screaming our head off, and it's pretty scary experience getting down and getting up. Only later on we discovered there is actually another trail that you can just bypass this whole section here and continue your way. The wave is one of my favorite spots. This is a truly magical place. It has a very surreal feeling to this place. The hike only takes around 1.5 hours one way without any stopping or resting, and less than 1 hour on the way back. It's a relatively easy hike across many different very unique terrain, like sand, rocks and wavy rock formation. There wasn't any path or signpost, and we had to fully rely on the compass and the map of the picture that we were given to navigate our way. Now notice this trail you actually need to go on a lottery to get in, and only 20 people each day are allowed to get here, and we were the very lucky 4 that we managed to get out. We won a lottery and discovered this stunning place. We spent so much time in here. The actual hiking wasn't too long, but the time spent in the wave, just exploring the area, taking photos, just taking in the scenery. That actually, the whole thing took us maybe 6 hours or something. Absolutely stunning. Highly recommend it if you can manage to take a risk and see if you win the lottery. From Kanab, we drove away to Page, the closest town to the famous Antelope Canyon and Horseshoe Bend, and it's around 1.5 to 2 hours drive to Monument Valley. Everything here in Navajo land we had to pay extra to get in. The National Park Pass is not going to be very useful here, as the land are privately owned by the natives. So you have to pay for the tour into Antelope Canyon, Horseshoe Bend. You have to pay to get in here, and Monument Valley, I think it was $30 for a car or something. Inside Monument Valley, there's a scenic drive around 1.5 to 2 hours to see all the different rock formation. I personally didn't really enjoy this park, as all the rocks look pretty similar after a while, and it's just rocks and more rocks and more rocks, and they all started to look the same. And apart from that, I felt like there's a lot of restriction inside the park. You can see there's a lot of fences around, and you can't really wander around on your own, and there's not many hiking that you can do. Grand Canyon is like the star attraction that everybody seems to have high expectation for, and everybody wants to go there. But when we arrived, it felt like something is missing. Now perhaps because we've seen a lot of really unique and stunning places like Bryce and the Wave, which is totally unbeatable, and suddenly Grand Canyon just cannot be compared. I suppose the word to describe this place is more like it's very secure, it's very solid, it's almost very safe. In fact, I reckon the beauty of the Grand Canyon can only be appreciated if you hike all the way down to the river, which you shouldn't attempt to go down and come back the same day, or else you might die of fatigue, says the information board, and a lot of books says the same thing. There are a lot of viewpoints inside the park, seeing Grand Canyon from a different angle, but all of them are packed with people even during winter. So we spent a total of 7 days in this road trip, with a total spending of around $250 per person, including car rental, petrol, motel, and food. We actually didn't eat out at all, so we've been just shopping in the supermarket to get food. We were quite lucky to be given a national park pass, so we didn't actually have to spend on that. Otherwise, it's going to cost you around $80 per car for all the parks. Well, it's valid for 1 year anyway. USA is best to be appreciated with a group of friends, I reckon, renting a car together, and best to go during summer where you can do camping inside each park and when all the hiking trails are opened. In the winter, you can see, especially up north of Utah, there are a lot of hiking trails that's been closed. So like say Angel's Landing, that would be a pretty epic trail to do if you kind of go there during summer. Each park, I reckon, is worth at least 1 or 2 full days to get a good glimpse of it, so we barely just scratched the surface, and hopefully we'll be back soon.